Hey guys, John V here from PhoneArena. Right now you're watching our video review of the Asus Padfone 2. Now this guy's selling right now. If you look online, it's going for roughly around $800. That includes both the price of the smartphone itself and the docking tablet, the Padfone station. And it has that cool factor in the way that you go from a smartphone to a tablet very quickly. All you gotta do is, of course, just slide the handset like so into the rear of the casing, and voila, you get a fully functioning Android tablet in the palm of your hands. So is it cool? Maybe. And is it the right price point for you? Let's find out in this review right now. As for the design of the handset, it pretty much maintains the look of its predecessor. It's pretty much identical, except for the fact that it is larger in footprint due to the larger display on hand. But overall, it's a very nice looking handset. We do appreciate the choice of materials. It utilizes a design style similar to what you find with their ZenBook Prime Ultrabooks. You have that wedge taper design to it. You have the metallic aluminum trim around its body, giving it a nice elegant look. And even though it's not metallic, we do still appreciate the spun plastic finish in the back. It gives a nice design style. On top of that, a very clean finish, though it comes off a little bit slick in the hand. But the most impressive part about this handset is just how lightweight it is compared to some other similarly sized smartphones. One of the first noticeable upgrades with the handset is its larger, more high-resolution display. It's a 4.7-inch 720p Super IPS Plus display on there, so 720 by 1280 pixels. Of course, that translates to some really sharp-looking details. We didn't have any issues, especially in the web browser when you're zoomed out view. Even this minuscule of text, it's more than legible to the eye. And seeing that as a Super IPS Plus display, it's great for outdoor visibility thanks to its wide viewing angles, its high contrast, and strong brightness output. Color tones tend to be a little bit on the warm side, but nevertheless, it still gives it some vibrancy, and it's definitely one of the nice parts about the device. Take a look around the trim of the handset. On the right edge, we have the dedicated power button and volume controls. They're raised and very tactile. Both the 3.5mm headset jack and the nano SIM slots are located on the top edge. The left edge of the phone is completely clean of any buttons or ports, while on the bottom edge, you have the micro USB port for charging and data connectivity. Above the display, you have the earpiece, of course, the light and proximity sensors, and a front-facing 1.2 megapixel camera which can shoot videos in 720p. And finally, in the rear, you have a 13 megapixel autofocus camera which features an LED flash and 1080p video recording. Nearby, you have the grill there for the internal speaker. It's worth noting that due to its closed design, there's no access to its internal battery, nor is there any way to increase its storage capacity with a micro SD card slot. So obviously the cool thing about the Asus Padfone 2 is that you go from a smartphone form factor to a tablet. Now, the tablet itself, it's pretty much conventional in terms of design, nothing really too fancy about it, but it's worth noting that it utilizes a different way of actually incorporating the handset this time around. Before, it was actually like this closed, you had to pull a cover over to close the device, but this time around, it's a lot simpler. In fact, that's just a slot loading mechanism. You slide the handset into place, and voila, it's ready to go as a tablet. Now you can tell it utilizes the handset's camera in the rear to take photos and videos. Features its built-in speaker, of course. You have your buttons for volume and also power button. And as far as the specs for the handset, pretty modest, nothing really extraordinary. You have a 10.1-inch WXJ IPS display on board, 1280 by 800 pixels. I believe it's a 550 nit brightness output, so it's pretty sharp looking still, nevertheless, not 1080p, but more than adequate. Great view, decent viewing angles actually, and you're still visible in outdoor conditions. You have a front-facing camera right there, so you could take photos and self-portraits. You have a micro USB port for charging data connectivity. As far as the design though, nothing really extravagant. It's a little bit more modest, unlike some of the other tablets that Asus manufactures. It has a soft touch matte finish to the body, which doesn't really quite contrast well with the spun plastic finish of the handset itself, so a little bit different in that aspect. And you can tell from the profile here, towards the middle, it's a little bit larger just because of the way it incorporates the handset, and features its own battery, which is nice. So if you're using the handset by itself, you can get up to 16 hours of 3G talk time on a single charge, but when you include the battery power of the tablet itself, it supplements it up to as much as, I believe, 36 hours. We like that the handset's running a mostly stock experience. It's actually Android 4.1.1 Jelly Bean on board, and it relies on some of Asus's specific widgets to give it a little bit of personalization. Of course, you could change the wallpaper and even the widgets on there. With the notifications panel, we like that there's some quick connectivity features on board. And the app panel is laid out in your traditional grid-like view. It's categorized according to different types of apps, whether they're smartphone or tablet-optimized applications. But for the most part, it's pretty much the stock experience. However, we got to say that Asus has done a wonderful job with the tablet experience of the Asus Padfone 2. Now, when the smartphone is stock, you have this thing called dynamic switching, which is enabled. So basically, if you're doing something in the smartphone, for example, you're typing a text message and you put it into the tablet, it's going to bring you back to where you left off. So it's very useful in that aspect, but it doesn't work with everything, with most things, mostly the core organizer apps. So if you're playing a game and you dock it to the tablet, it's not going to bring you back to where you were at before. Another cool thing with the experience here is that they've offered quite a few different these smaller widgets which are overlaid on top of whatever you're doing. So for example, you could have a calculator one, a calendar, and even your email one, and as I said, it's overlaid on top of whatever you're doing, so it offers some pretty neat multitasking aspects. You can quickly switch between them, and for the most part, it is an ideal tablet experience. Well, there's no kidding that the handset isn't messing around when it comes to raw processing power. It's powered by a quad-core 1.5 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro processor with the Adreno 320 GPU and 2 GB of RAM. And honestly, it is very quick and speedy, and you can tell even with the live wallpaper, no slowdown whatsoever on the home screen. So whether you're doing some basic operations, opening up applications, using the browser to surf the web, or even more processor intensive tasks like gaming, it's going to handle it with no issues at all. And of course, its benchmark scores really prove that as well. It's worth noting that the Asus Padfone 2 features Lte Connectivity, but doesn't support all the bands, so you gotta double check for whether or not it will support your specific carrier. But as far as the web browsing experience is concerned, it is more than adequate. Thanks to its high resolution display, you get some crisp looking visuals. With its quad-core processor, it effortlessly does kinetic scrolling and even pinch zooming and stuff like page rendering instantly, so it's fantastic in every way. Well, there isn't anything really new with the music player on board. It's the usual Google Play Music application, which still has a nice visual presentation. As far as the audio quality with its speakerphone, though, with the default equalizer setting, it kind of sounds a little bit strained, the loudest volume setting, though it's very strong and powerful. But if you choose the appropriate one, it produces some better tones. Not surprisingly, the handset handles high-definition videos no problems thanks to its sharp-looking display, vibrant colors, and smooth performance. Of course, it's more than ideal. Now, it offers a wide array of support for different codecs, but one that's noticeably absent out of the box is DivX. Armed with a 13-megapixel autofocus camera, the Asus Padfone 2 produces average quality shots at best. It doesn't quite compare to some of the high-end or top-notch camera phones out there in the market. Details with outdoor shots tend to be a little bit on the soft side and doesn't handle dynamic range that well. In lower lighting conditions, we tend to notice that its capture rate is slower, so there's more of a chance of getting blurred shots, which doesn't help when they're already grainy and have little detail in them, but the LED flash seems potent enough to light up the scenery. At the same time, we could say the same thing about its 1080p video recording quality. Not the best thing out there, but more than usable for most case scenarios. Detail seems to be pretty much maintained, a good amount of sharpness in the shots, though when you're panning very quickly, of course, you notice just some artifacting elements that pop up. But audio recording seems to be clear and distortion-free, but the biggest distraction that we found was that even in outdoor shots, it has a slower capture rate of 23 frames per second, so it usually comes off a little bit choppy. Indeed, call quality is pleasant with the handset, but it's not quite perfect. The earpiece itself sounds strong, but you gotta really put it next to your ear to hear anything properly. Voices tend to have a little bit of crackle to them at the loudest volume setting, and on the other end line, our callers didn't have any issues as voices are clear and distinctive. The noise cancellation feature works rather well, though it takes a couple of seconds for it to kick in. And when we switch to using a speakerphone, its volume output is very strong and potent, but again, it just produces some crackly tones. Signature with the handset is pretty much consistent. We didn't find it fluctuating that much during our testing, nor did it drop any phone calls. Using the handset strictly with AT&T's Edge network, seeing that it doesn't have support for the HSPA Plus bands, we're able to get some pretty good battery life with the Asus Padfone 2. With its fully charged battery, I believe it's 2140 milliamp hour battery, we're able to get easily 2 days of normal usage, which mainly consisted of surfing the web and occasional text message. Now, we paired up with the tablet, and with the tablet, we managed to get close to 4 days battery life with mixed usage between the smartphone and tablet. So that's pretty good when you think about it. What it comes down to, the Asus Padfone 2 is a pretty interesting device. As a smartphone by itself, it's very compelling from its design, its hardware, and its performance. It rivals those of the top-notch Android smartphones on the market, and you get that dual functionality of a tablet and also smartphone all in one, and you get that extended battery, which is nice and appreciable. Now, the thing is that no one's selling this in the US, with a carrier or through subsidies. On the average, you're looking to pick this up for $800 for the combination here, which is rather pricey when you think about the cost of, standard 10.1-inch Android tablets nowadays. They go for as low as $400. But if you want to have this dual functionality, this is an option for you. Though if you do pick it up, you got to think about it like this. You're going to be invested in this smartphone and this dock because these are the only two devices that are compatible with one another. We could assume at this point that with the successor to the Padfone 2, it's going to use a totally different docking system. So you really can't use the new smartphone with the old one or the old one with the new one. It's going to be totally changed. But as an alternative, if you're looking for the best of both worlds, tablet and also smartphone, you might want to consolidate and think about something like the Note 2 that Samsung offers. That's a pretty good option as well. But if not, if you prefer having it separated without having two independent devices, then this might be something that might appeal to you. So if you'd like to learn more about the Asus Padfone 2, guys, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. This is John V. Thanks for watching.